I know I need to lose weight. Like, you know, I know I need to get my life in check. And,
Right.
and his kind of response was like, you're not that bad. I'm like, I'm 350 pounds. Like, it's pretty bad.
Welcome, everybody, to the Not For Nothing podcast, hosted by the dynamic duo Christopher Michael and Ashley Mayland, where they delve into life, love, relationships, and personal growth. Be sure to tune in every week for a refreshing take on life's most important lessons. We're joined today with Jeffrey Jensen and his wife, Lauren. Thank you guys for coming, by the way, on a side note.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you.
So glad that you guys got the weather to just be as hot as possible in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, it's like 110 with the heat index.
Yeah, it's hot.
Wild outside.
It slaps you in the face whenever you go outside.
It does, doesn't it? It takes your breath away.
Yes.
We walked to breakfast this morning and I was like, oh, it's not too bad. And on the way back, I was just like, whew, it is.
Yeah.
It is toasty.
And it's only May.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in Florida in July?
Yeah.
Well, you live in Myrtle Beach, right? Doesn't it get pretty humid
very
there?
Similar weather.
Yeah. So you know.
We typically always come to Miami in June or July, but it just depends. This is definitely hot.
Usually not this hot.
Yeah, we're going to be in for a really hot summer. This is when it's like this in May, we know we're done for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. But appreciate you joining. You have a pretty inspiring story.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I loved hearing about it when we talked, and seems like it was a pretty long road for you.
Yeah.
And I was curious, like what really kind of was like the first light bulb moment for you, where you kind of like, all right, well, this is something that needs to change. Like if you can give a little background on it.
Yeah. So growing up, kind of always was like, I don't know, considered myself big boned, right?
Right.
Which I've just come to learn that's not an actual thing. Like you're just fat.
Right.
So if you're watching this and you're big boned, you're probably not. But all my life, I come from a big family, right? I've got 3 other brothers. I'm the oldest, and we all were always just kind of big guys, right? My dad's big, just kind of always looked at it as like, oh, that's just like a normal thing, to be, you know, a big husky guy. And so Lauren and I got married and I was in decent shape. Right. I wasn't like super, super overweight, but I was never into fitness. I was never into working out.
Right.
Didn't play sports in high school. And so I've always been an entrepreneur, always worked for myself since I was 18, did entrepreneurial stuff when I was a kid. And in 2016, it was the first time I'd ever had like a real career type job. It was the first time I didn't work for myself. I had actually sold my company to another company and I was running that company. And so I went from being very active, very just full of life, excited, happy, to honestly just miserable because I was now working for somebody else, great company and a great owner. We just didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. I just kind of found myself in this place where I just wasn't happy. And so Lauren was pregnant with our first son. And so, you know, you have that sympathy of like, oh, she's craving this, we're going to go eat that. And you add that into the fact that I'm driving around in a truck all day. So I did landscaping.
Right.
And literally the highlight of my life was, hey, where am I going to go eat lunch today?
Right.
Because work just sucked. And so I found myself just rapidly putting on weight. And in 2016, beginning of 2017, when we had our first son, Levi, I was at my all-time worst. I was 350 plus pounds, super, super overweight. And I can vividly remember her being in labor and she physically pushed for 3 hours, not labored for 3 hours, but like actually pushed this kid out of her for 3 hours. And we were done. I was more exhausted, right? Like I was soaking wet with sweat. Like she was good. And I'm like, damn, like that's a problem. Like that's not good. And
I think he asked at one point, he's like, oh, I'm really hungry. I was like, are you kidding me right now?
While you were in the room?
A lot of energy expended, you know, bending over, holding that leg. And so that was my first like wake up call of like, hey man, you just had a kid, like you have a son now. And so, in the beginning of 2017, I started just kind of toying with the idea of like, all right, I need to go back on my own. I need to be an entrepreneur again. I need to get in a place where I'm happy and fulfilled. And so I randomly have a culinary background, never really did anything with it because I just didn't like the restaurant industry. It wasn't conducive to having a family.
Right.
Obviously love food. You don't get to be over 350 pounds without having a passion for eating. And so I decided to start prepping some food for myself to try and attempt to lose weight.
Okay.
And so I started cooking some food, posting it on social media, and people started asking, hey, like, that looks really good. Do you think you could prep it for me? And all of a sudden my wheels just start turning. And in May of 2017, my brother and I launched our company, which is 212 Meal Prep. So we have a meal prep company in the Carolinas that's 7 years old now. It's massive. We're in 30 different cities.
It's amazing.
Starting that is what kind of really kickstarted my journey. And so the first few years of building that company, I lost a good bit of weight. I lost probably 60, 70 pounds by eating our food, going to the gym, 4 or 5 days a week, just doing the things that, you need to do.
Right.
Our business model is very unique. So we partner with gyms as pickup locations. And so when COVID got hit, especially Charlotte, North Carolina, which is our primary place of business, all of the gyms got shut down.
Right.
And so we went from crushing it and making all this money, which we then turned and dumped back into the business because probably like a lot of people, we thought 2020 was going to be our year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We went from that to losing $12,000 to $15,000 a week.
Wow.
And so it got to a point where my brother Jason and I were having the conversations of like, hey, we might have to start laying people off. Hey, we might be 1 or 2 weeks away from having to shut this down.
Wow.
Like conversations about, what do we do? Do we foreclose on our houses? How do we find money to make this last?
Right.
Lots of stress. And so I just kind of started eating my feelings again. And so fast forward to 2021, I had finally gotten back all the way over 350 pounds, but now I own a health company, right? So now I own this meal prep company where we help people change their lives. And so now I feel like a hypocrite. And so in March of 2021, right after my 33rd birthday, I ended up in the hospital. I was blacking out. Didn't tell Lauren about it. She's a nurse by trade. And so I don't know if you're listening to this and you're married to a nurse. Nurses are amazing, but they go from 0 to 100 in like a millisecond.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so I didn't want to scare her
Right.
Until I kind of figured out which was going on, which was a stupid idea because you're not going to figure out what's going on if you don't have a medical background.
Right.
And so one day she was heading out of town because she covered a big area of branches at the time. And so she was driving about an hour away for work. And she'd probably been gone for like 30 or 40 minutes. And I was supposed to get the kids ready. At this time, we now have 2 sons. So I'm supposed to get them up, get them ready for school. And I keep blacking out and I can't get out of bed. And so all of a sudden I'm having this like panic attack where I'm like, shit, like I can't even get out of bed. My kids are home. And so I ended up calling her, telling her everything. She freaks out. She's like, what in the world? Turns around, her mom comes over and we end up rushing me to the hospital. Come to find out my blood pressure was 180 over 120, which if you're listening to this and you don't know what that means, that's bad.
Right.
It's like really close to stroking out. And so ran every test in the book and basically just came back and they were like, you're fat. Like you're just unhealthy.
Not quite like that, I'm sure.
They said it a little bit more
kind of way.
So you didn't have Dr. House in the room.
Yeah.
No, it's probably what I needed.
Right.
And so ended up getting on blood pressure medicine, went to a primary care doctor. And it's funny how our system really works. And it's almost kind of sad. I went to this doctor and he prescribed me blood pressure medicine. And I even said in like our initial consultation, I said, I know I need to lose weight. Like, I know I need to get my life in check. And his kind of response was like, you're not that bad. I'm like, I'm 350 pounds. Like, it's pretty bad. And so I hired a personal trainer, started working out and started eating our food again, but I still lied to myself. So Monday through Thursday did really good, worked out 3 or 4 days a week. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, ate like shit, right? Because it was one of those things where I would say, I did really well. Now I can reward myself.
Right.
Or I'm doing really well, but maybe the results aren't coming as fast as I want. And this pizza is going to give me a nice dopamine release. So I'm just going to enjoy that. And so it wasn't until October of 2021 that I finally had the light bulb moment that you asked about. I was at an event in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we were promoting 212 and First Form, which is a large supplement company. They were there and they had some guys that were there representing the brand. And so we got into some really good conversations that day. I started sharing my story with them. And the one thing that they said to me that really related was, hey, look, like you might not be where you want to be, but your story could really impact a lot of people if you'd be willing to share it and be vulnerable. And they also told me that I should listen to Andy Frisella's story.
Right.
Because it was very similar. And so on the drive home, I started listening to Andy's podcast. He talked about his story where he was over 350 pounds running First Form, which is a massive supplement company in the health and nutrition field.
Right.
And how he created a program called 75 Hard, ended up getting in really, really good shape. And that kind of changed everything for him, his business, and everything that he was involved with. And so a couple of days later, I was at my desk and I was listening to one of his podcasts on 75 Hard. And I had kind of had a conversation with my personal trainer at the time about possibly doing 75 Hard, and great trainer, phenomenal guy, love him to death. And I think he probably said this because he realized how inconsistent I had been at everything else. Right. And he kind of just said, hey, like, maybe don't start with that. Maybe let's start with just like actually doing what you're supposed to do and like showing up and working out and eating good. But I just had this feeling of like, hey, you've got to do something drastic, and what you've been doing is not working. And so I started doing the math, because 75 Hard, for those of you who don't know, is 75 days of basically being absolutely perfect. So it's 2 45-minute workouts every day. Okay. One has to be outside. Doesn't matter the weather. Doesn't matter if it's hot. Doesn't matter if it's raining, snowing. They have to be separated by at least 3 hours of time. So you can't do them back to back.
So let me just ask, just so people have context too, why outside? Why does it have to be outside?
I think it's just because it pushes you mentally, right? Because how many times do we say, oh, I'm going to go for a run, and then it starts raining. You're like, I'll do it tomorrow.
True.
Or, you're going to go outside and take a walk, but it's 110 degrees in the Fort Lauderdale sun.
Right.
You're like, I probably won't do that right now. And so having the outdoor workout really forces you to be uncomfortable.
Okay.
So you have your 2 workouts, then you have to follow a diet, no cheat meals. So no fast food, nothing that you would consider any type of cheat food, no alcohol, drink a gallon of water every day, take a progress photo every day, and read 10 pages of some sort of personal development book. Wow. So it's really, a lot of people look at it as this like physical challenge, and it's probably the furthest thing from that. It is a mental toughness program. It is literally designed to rebuild your mindset and change who you are. And so I was doing the math, because 75 days is a long time.
Right.
And it basically ran through Thanksgiving, my dad's 60th birthday, which we were doing like a big surprise. So I knew there'd be a lot of alcohol and food and fun. And then we had a 10-day vacation planned.
Wow. So you went right through everything.
So we had all these like fun things, and my life revolved around food. Right. Because I was addicted to food. And so I thought to myself, like, all right, all these things are going to get ruined now if I do this. And I had this moment where I'm by myself in my office, no one's around. And I literally say out loud, you fat fuck, you will die if you don't change your life. You have to stop making excuses because of food. Like how sad is that you are letting food control your entire outcome of how you live your life? And so that was that moment of like, hey, you fat fuck, like you've got to change. Like if you don't change now, you'll never change, and you'll never become the person that you're supposed to be. And so I got up, I ended up texting Lauren and saying, hey, I'm doing this thing called 75 Hard. It's going to suck. If you want to do it with me, cool. If not, I just need your support. And I turned on Andy's episode where he explains exactly how to do it. Okay. And I did my first workout. And that literally changed the trajectory of our entire life over the last 3 years.
It's amazing though. Isn't it crazy? You just need to take that first step. And a lot of people don't realize that. You could sit there and rationalize to yourself all day long and justify not doing something. You can, right? There's always tomorrow. People love to say, I'll start on Monday. Like that's got to be such an infamous statement to make to yourself. Yep. And you just never do it. So you have to have that moment, right? Where your self-awareness is just 100% clear. And you know that if you don't jump on it now when you need to the most, it's just, you're never going to do it. You're going to excuse your way out of it constantly and forever, or it's going to come to a point where inevitably you're going to have something like a stroke, right? Yep. You're going to leave your family. You're just not, something traumatic is going to happen to you. And, at that point you're forced, right? And you don't want it to get there. Yeah. So it's great for you that you had that moment where you were able to take control on your own terms.
Yeah. Truly. And I think too, we see a lot, especially with coaching now, is people, when they finally do have that moment, that is where everything changes for them. And sometimes it's, something happening that maybe like my case where you have super high blood pressure, but you don't get to that point of having a stroke, or it may be a relationship ending. It just something, some sort of catalyst to say, all right, I've got to turn my life around. People ask me all the time, well, how, I have someone that I want to encourage. How do I get them to change? It's like, you don't. Like, live by the example, encourage them to do it, show them what's possible. But people have to get to that point in their life where they're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah, you have to. You have to want to do something. Yep. You can't force people to do anything. They have to want it for themselves. Yeah. Even if initially they start doing something for someone, it's never going to stick, right? They may do it for a period of time to make you happy and appease you, but eventually they're going to slip. They're going to, and then they're going to fall right back into whatever it is they were doing.
100%.
And like for me, and I'm sure it probably was similar in the sense that you had a food addiction. I had a drug addiction, given they're very different. But the one thing that addicts do is we reward ourselves with things. Truly, we do. Whether it be use on a weekend or whatever the case may be. So for me, a big part of it, like even when I stopped, right? Like initially stopped or cut back a lot, when I knew I had to start getting ready to stop and give things up, I'd kind of set myself on like if it makes sense, not like a program, but I'd get through certain things and then I reward myself by using. So that was a hard thing to get. I was hard to get out of that mindset of doing that. You know what I mean? And
that's so relatable though, because it's literally the same thing of like, hey, I'm going to do really, really good. This is what most people struggle with, especially with food, because I've never been addicted to drugs. I can't imagine. I'm sure it's a extremely hard thing, but I feel like food addiction is one of the hardest addictions to break because you have to eat to live. You can't just cold turkey it. But what I see a lot of people do is they'll say, all right, I'm going to do really, really well. And it's kind of sad, but I see this a lot with 75 hard is people will say, I'm going to do 75 hard. And when I finish, I'm just going to go balls to the wall and eat like shit.
Right.
And it's like, if that's you, if you finish 75 hard and your next move on day 76 is to go eat this disgusting big cheat meal, you didn't do 75 hard properly, because it didn't actually change your mindset. And so I see that a lot with people when it comes to food is, hey, I'm going to do really, really well, or I want to hit this goal weight. And when I hit this goal weight, I'll reward myself with this. And it's like, you have to get to a point where you realize that this journey, whether it's fitness, whether it's recovering addict, whether it's relationships, whatever it is, anything worth doing in life is an infinite journey. There is no destination. You never arrive. And so you have to stop living like you get this reward at the end, you get this trophy, because it doesn't exist. The only way to have satisfaction and to feel fulfilled in these journeys is to be able to continue to play the game.
Yeah.
100%. That's what it's all about, is staying in the game and continuing to live the best version of yourself.
Yeah. You need to have belief in yourself too. Like you need to believe that you can do things, and you need to realize that every step you take toward your goal is a step in the right direction, and I think people, they struggle with that a lot. Yeah. Everybody wants everybody wants instant gratification, right? So everybody wants to see changes real quick, and it just doesn't happen that way. And everybody looks at social media and they see all these things, and it's like, great, you're only seeing very small clips of what somebody went through. Mm-hmm. You have to be committed to making changes like that in your life. It's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. And if you're looking for instant gratification with things like that, you're not going to get it. And you're always going to set yourself up for failure because you're not willing to put the work in. And I think that's a big part. I would imagine you have to put the work in. You need to change your mindset. Like you said, you need to reform your behavior, and it's a lifestyle change completely.
Yeah.
So that's great, man. Congratulations to you for being able to get it done and change your whole life around. That's awesome.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And then just out of curiosity, so how was it for you as his wife to go through that with him and to live watching him live like that?
Yeah. So I think we've said, but we've been together for 18 years, married for 12, 2 kids, as you heard. And I will never forget driving down the road and receiving that phone call, having no clue that he had been blacking out days prior. He kind of kept all of that from me, and really kind of having this whole moment of like, okay, this is happening. And we've now got to like step in. My husband's 33. And here we are. We own this health and fitness company for food. And okay, we're in the hospital today. Here I am, a nurse. Like my husband's failing medically. Like this is a lot. And to hear that, he's struggled with weight his whole life. He also didn't share a point of his story that he also never took off his shirt except for in front of me for his entire life. So we would go to the pool, the beach. I mean, we live at the beach every single day. He would wear a shirt. Even he would go on trips with his brother for our meal prep company, and they would stay in the same hotel room. He would go in the bathroom and change. So things that I just kind of had like accepted as like, this is my husband. I loved who he was. He's a very entrepreneur, amazing spirit.
Right.
We were best friends growing up. And had an awesome relationship, but hated that for him. And so to receive that phone call was just like, okay, my whole world is crushing in on me, but we need to take care of this. And so went to the hospital, realized, hey, it's high blood pressure. Okay. He's going to start getting a trainer. Okay. But also at the same time, COVID hit. So like he shared with our business. So there was a lot of things that were just, you didn't even have to talk about them. You just felt that they were heavy. Right. In the world, everyone felt that.
Yeah.
But even for, the kids, I mean, like every other week, like daycare is getting canceled. And, I'm like, we're trying to juggle all the things. And then in the background, knowing that our business is suffering, and also having to, perform at work and all of the things that just felt so heavy. So it was very easy during that time for myself to kind of eat my feelings and really just kind of like, okay, it just is what it is.
Right.
And so I kind of joined in on like life is hard. Let's just order Mexican. Let's get pizza. Yep. We should have margarita. Oh, we should join a wine club. Like we should be drinking lots of wine right now. We can work from home. This is great. I don't have to get up early the next morning to go to work. I can stay home. So if it's okay, if I have a headache, it's fine. And very, very simple, but I will never forget the time that he called me and I'm driving back and he said, I just listened to 75 Hard, the podcast with Andy Frisella, and he explains it. And he said, I'm going to send it to you. You don't have to do it with me, but I just need your support. And I'm like, okay. And I could hear it in his voice, like something clicked with me. And I was like, this is the moment that everything changes. And so I was like, okay. He's like, I'm going to do my first workout. I'm like, okay. So I put the podcast on and I'm like, shit, this is a lot, I would just like to go home and order Mexican food and have a glass of wine.
Right.
Now you've started your whole workout. And so I supported from the sidelines and decided that this was not for me, but that I was going to support him.
Right.
And I will be very honest, and we talk about this a lot. I was very supportive, but it was also like, okay, you have to go do your second workout. Okay, I'm just going to watch the kids. Okay, peace. I'm just over here chilling.
Right.
A very like supportive, but also like,
a little
really
resentment a little bit.
Yeah. Like,
supportive, but I'm going to let you know.
Right.
That you're going to do another workout.
Another one.
Right. And can you get off your phone and stop tracking all your food?
Right.
Yes.
Help me with the kids.
Yes. Yeah. I'll never forget. I was like, can you just put your phone down? Like we're just trying to eat food. Like just eat the food, like just not quite grasping, but supportive, great for you. But can you sit down and like just eat dinner with us? Or do you have to do all of that?
Right.
And so then he really started to get success. And you could see a lot of change. I could see the mental change. And so I just kind of kept living my life over there.
Right.
And the kids and I love to order Mexican to the house. So it's funny to think back now because it's like our lives are so different now. But I would just order like DoorDash because that was such a big thing.
So
it's
easy.
Huge now.
Yeah, for sure.
But remember that was like a new thing. You're like, and they just drop it off without ringing your doorbell.
Yeah,
and I'm like, if somebody rings my doorbell now, I'm like, no. Like, why are you ringing my doorbell?
Right.
But anyway, so we would just easily like get like Mexican to go. And I'm like eating that in front of him, right? As he like can't eat his cheap food. But so it actually quickly turned for me. He completed 75 Hard and I was more supportive towards the end and kind of understood as he began to really have success.
Of course.
And it got to be January of 2022. And he had already completed 75 Hard. And I, at that point, work had kind of picked back up. I covered 8 branches. So I began traveling for work.
Wow.
And I actually am a nurse. At the time I was working in home health. I was an area director. And so while I wasn't always going into clients or patients' homes, I would go in with clients or like clinicians to go into patients' homes.
Okay.
So I, in 2020, got my concealed weapons permit. Just I would be staying in hotel rooms by myself and traveling to unsafe places. And so I always carried my weapon with me. And there were It was a day that I was traveling home, and I had the realization that I needed to come home and be real with how I was feeling.
Okay.
And so it happened to be a night that we had already worked out, like my parents had the kids. And so I feel like it was a safe time for me just to kind of like sit him down. And so I sat him down in our kitchen and I looked at him and I said, I don't want you to freak out. I don't want you to leave me. I love you. I am happy in our marriage. I am happy with our children. Like we have a beautiful life. I don't have anything to pinpoint. Please do not send me to the hospital. Please do not send me to the insane asylum. But I am suicidal and I need you to take my gun. And it was a very tough conversation for me to even like vocalize that it had been happening. Like, cause it was kind of me like realizing like, this sounds so dumb to say. Like, why am I having these feelings? But it was very intrusive thoughts. Like I could be in the middle of a dinner with my kids and it's like this thought just comes in and I'm like envisioning myself do it. Like it's not even like I'm like sad and crying and it's intrusive, uncontrollable. And so he immediately took my gun and he very lovingly looked at me. Now, my husband's just gone on his entire journey, right? I've seen him get up every single day and do every single thing that we just said for 75 days straight. I've seen him live the life. So he looks at me and he says, you need to go back to the gym. Like you need to reclaim your health and do something for your health. Now, when we share that story, sometimes people are like, and how did you say that to your wife without her being like, oh, you called me fat, you know? But it was because he had already laid out, he had led from the front.
Right.
And he had been doing everything, and I literally looked at him and I was like, you're right. And it happened to be that like the next day, my son was like not feeling well. So he had to like stay home from school. I'm like, see, I can't even go today because he's home and he's like, you know, his belly hurts. It wasn't like real sickness. It was like one of those like, I don't want to go to school. But I'm like, see, I can't even go. Like giving myself an excuse already. He goes, no, go. They have childcare. Go. He's fine. So I literally went up that day and that was forever changed my life. I started back at the gym. And it was over a process of us also figuring out that sugar. So like processed sugar was detrimental to my mental health.
Okay.
But that's kind of what started on my journey and kind of joining him on kind of what was happening. So.
That's great that you two are there to be so supportive of each other. And, you know, I was just going to say there's a couple of things that you had said. The first thing is you were talking about the wine club, right? Isn't it funny how everything in this world is perpetuated to make people do unhealthy shit? Because it is outrageous. I was talking to someone that I'm seeing now, and she joined the wine club for like $35 a month. It's literally cheaper than going to the gym.
Yeah.
So like we do everything in this country to make things easy and accessible to be unhealthy.
Yes.
And a lot less to perpetuate like good behavior, healthy behavior. Like even your friend or someone saying like, how did he say that to you without you thinking that he was calling you fat? Why does everybody associate you going to the gym with being fat?
Yes.
Right.
It's just a healthy lifestyle.
Yes.
Like what does that have to do with it?
And you weren't fat, to set the record straight. Like you were always fit. Like you always like kept it together, but it was more of a, hey, you need to do something for you. You need to stop focusing on everybody else. You need to move your body. You need to de-stress. You need to clean up your diet. It has nothing to do with your aesthetic or your look. It has everything to do with what's inside of you.
Yeah. But like as moms, like, and as women, honestly, especially like as nurses, like just in general, like our kind of like persona is like, let me help everybody. Let me do this. Let me be a helper. And as women, we just think like, let me just help. And we never help ourselves.
Right.
We literally just neglect ourselves. Let me just do for everybody else. And what I've learned is like, man, if we're not okay, right? Like I was helping, even though I was suicidal, I was doing the things, the mom things, showing up at school, taking my kids to baseball games, you know, helping him, like all the things. But it's like inside I wasn't okay.
Right.
Why is that okay? It's like if we could all internally fix ourselves and like make sure that we're okay, not this selfish mindset of like self-care, like not that,
right?
But like this very like taking care of our bodies. Oh my gosh, the world would literally be an amazing place.
Yeah, 100%.
But we so focus on pointing out other people's issues or things they need or, you know, having an opinion on so many different things that we won't just self-reflect on what we could utilize.
Yeah. A lot of people have a problem reflecting on themselves. A lot of people deflect things. They don't like focusing in on the negative for themselves.
Because it's not pretty.
No, and most of the time it's not. But at the end of the day, you can't make improvements to your life if you're not willing to face the facts,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like you have to be a self-aware person. And if you're not, you're just living in a delusion, you know? And for you, it's great that you're with somebody who, like, you're a giver, right? You're a nurse. So your natural instinct is, aside from, women tend to be more givers than anything. You're a nurse on top of it all, right? So I always say, like, it's important. Like, you don't want to wind up with someone that's a taker when you're a giver, and your husband's clearly not. And like, it's scary to think, like, imagine if it was a different, like, in a different life, you wound up with someone that was a taker, right? And you were in that state. Like, things could have been very different for you. And you guys were fortunate enough to wind up with each other, and you both love each other a lot. And you were there for each other and supportive. And that's not the case a lot of the time, especially in today's world.
Yeah.
So honestly, I'm happy for the both of you. It's great that you found that and we're able to do it together for each other.
Yeah.
Amazing.
No, it's super cool. I think too, a lot of times we live in this society of like, and I'm not trying to shit on therapy, so hopefully this doesn't come out wrong, but we live in this society of like, where all we want to do is stew on our problems. And I battled some anxiety, kind of right before I started 75 Hard, right after I had all my health troubles, like crippling anxiety. And I used to be the guy that would be like, anxiety's not real. Like, just get through it, But I had this, it was probably like a 2-month period where I just had uncontrollable anxiety. And I think a lot of it had to do with like me knowing that I was unhealthy and knowing that I almost had a stroke. And then just seeing other people that were my age that were having complications from COVID or like other things that were going on in life. And then, add in the business stress and all the different things. But I had a period where like I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't drive my car. Like, it was very, very crippling. But I think so many times the reason that we have anxiety is because we're either focusing on the past or we're focusing too much on the future, and we're not in the present. And if you'll just get into the present moment and then figure out what's causing that anxiety and take massive action on that, you can eliminate your anxiety. Because for me, mine was my health. Right. So in order to eliminate the anxiety, I needed to take all out massive action on getting healthy. And so I think today's culture is very, very pushy on like, let's just talk about our feelings. Right. And you get people that get in the boat with you, and it's just all this like kumbaya sad songs and like, it's okay, to be broken or whatever. And it's like, no, like, it's okay to be messed up. Figure out what's messing you up, and go change it. And stop reflecting on it 24/7. Stop stewing in the moment. And take massive action. And that would cure a lot of problems that are going on, because like you said, most people don't want to self-reflect. They don't have any self-awareness. And so I think if you can do that, you'll absolutely change your life. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it's always healthy for us to be able to open up and talk about what's bothering us. But that's only a part of the solution, right? Like, if you're not willing, like you said, to take action on the things that are troubling you or causing a problem in your life, you can talk about it all you want. Right. What's going to get done? Nothing's going to get done. Short of it being a literal mental issue, like something you physically can't control for some reason, talking about it is not going to do anything for you. You need to get up. You need to change your lifestyle. You need to change your behavior. You need to keep doing things that improve your life. You can't move forward when you live in the past. There's no possible way to do it. You have to let go. And if you can't let go of it, you're stuck in it forever. How can you even live in the present at all when you're constantly dwelling on your past mistakes or relationships or life or whatever it is? Like, you have to move on. Yeah. And more people, you're right. They need to focus on that and just get rid of all that shit that they harbor, all the things that they're thinking about constantly, and just do something for yourself. Get up and do something for yourself. Yeah. No doubt. We see like clients who will come in and say, like, I want to look like this, or I want this physique, right? Or even look at social media. You could think, I want to live that person's life, or I want this, but they don't consider the lifestyle that person lives, or that physique requires, right? They just, what they want is they want the results without having to change any of the lifestyle or give up things that they've been doing. And like thinking about victim mentality, or wanting to just continue eating a bad diet, or, wanting to continue to drink. And not that any of those things are bad, but you have to consider, is what I'm wanting to achieve in my goal, do I have what it takes to live that lifestyle? Right. Am I willing to go and live that lifestyle?
You know, you can't have both.
No, you can. And I think what people do that I know what people do is they make things like unattainable for themselves.
Yes.
Like they really do. Like, listen, it's not about, like you said, people want instant results.
Yeah.
Like, listen, it's small steps, right? It's small goals every day. And you just keep trying to reach them. Don't make things so far out of reach for yourself that you're going to fail, right? That's part of the problem. Like you set yourself up for failure. Just build on it. Like every day, build on it more and more. And then when you look back down the road and a year's come and gone, you'll be so much closer to where you want to be.
Time is such a crazy thing. And I've recently been in my feels about thinking about time, especially even like being here today for this podcast and thinking. I was at the gym Thursday and was seeing somebody and they were like, oh, we see you all over Instagram, like modeling and blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, you know, what's really crazy to me is like 3 years ago, my husband was 350 pounds and I was trying to commit suicide. And now like, oh my gosh, like all the things that have happened. I'm like,
right.
We never thought any of that was going to happen or come to fruition. Seeing such a change needed to happen in us and us taking daily steps. And you know what? 3 years ago feels like yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Like the time goes by so fast. And when people think, and like you said, like they make it so much further away or they think they have so much further to go, you don't.
Right.
You have to be 1% better than yesterday.
Yeah.
1% better. What does that look like? And then you compound that and you get to the end of a year and you're 365 better than the year before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just compound it.
Just keep taking a step forward. As long as you're not staying stagnant or stepping backwards, people don't realize you just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
It's better than what you were doing, right?
No doubt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So just be proud of yourself, you know, absorb and be happy and celebrate every achievement that you make.
Yeah.
Because you're in a better place today than you were yesterday. And if more people thought that way, they'd have a much easier time achieving the goals that they set out to achieve.
Yeah.
But people tap out too early today too. Nobody's willing to put the work in the way they used to.
Oh, that's like everything. Business, relationships, weight loss. It's all just give up way too soon.
For sure.
But like you said, you can't, like 3 years ago when I started 75 Hard, if I would have said, my goal is to win an international bodybuilding show like that wouldn't have aligned with who I was as a person. It wouldn't have made any sense.
Right.
So it's like you almost have to just let your journey unfold and just like Lauren was saying, get 1% better, stack daily wins, do the small, you know, minute, boring, mundane things every single day with excellence. And that's how you win at anything. That's how you have a great marriage. That's how you have a great business. That's how you have a great physique. It's not these people that go balls to the wall for a short amount of time.
Right.
Because then it all just unravels. It's just compounding. Like the compounding effect is such an amazing concept.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. I mean, you have to do it. Like you just said, like the people that go balls to the wall and unravel eventually, it's because they stay focused for a period of time, right? But they're not laying the groundwork for the new lifestyle that they have to live. So they're able to do it because they can focus for a short period of time and they have, let's just say a plan laid out in front of them. They're able to follow it. Okay, that's great. So you can follow for a period of time. Amazing. But if you don't fundamentally build yourself to live a new lifestyle, you're going to fail eventually. It's inevitable because you're going to go back to old ways.
100%. That was me for forever, especially when it came. Like I've lost 50 to 100 pounds like 3 or 4 times. And it was always that same mindset of like, hey, here's the goal. Here's the scale weight that I want to see.
Right.
And as soon as I get there, I can be a shithead again.
Right. Let loose.
But like, that's how my mindset worked. Like I went into it knowing if I could just reach that, then I could eat the way I was wanting to eat.
Right.
And it's like, it doesn't work that way.
No, it
like you have to become a new person.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And in most anything that you do when you're struggling to that degree, you know? But I'm curious, so like with your eating habits, was it like for like stress eating, like just you loved like, was it everything that you just consume and absorb? Like everything was food related?
I think for me, food was always like an event. Okay. So, it wasn't even necessarily like that I would just eat this insane quantity of food. Right. It was more just the emotional tie to food. So if I was going to order a pizza, I would need to like have a Netflix show or like a sporting event. Right. Like it would need to be this whole thing where like, you know, like, all right, set up the coffee table, have my drink, like make it this whole thing. Like when I would work for the landscaping company, like I would go and pick up my lunch, whether it was Sonic or Firehouse Subs or whatever it was.
Right.
And I would have to like back then I listened to talk radio because YouTube wasn't as, relative.
Right.
But like I would have to do it at the time where like the talk radio show that I liked came on. So it was like always revolving around some sort of event where there was a massive amount of dopamine.
Right.
And like when we traveled, everything was based off of where are we going to dinner?
Right.
Like it's so funny now, like this is our 4th year in a row coming to Miami, and we love Miami. We always come for our anniversary and we stay on South Beach. And besides last year, the first 2 years we came, everything revolved around like, what are we booking for dinner? Where are we going for brunch? Right. And like even this trip, like we had nothing planned, like literally didn't even look up restaurants, anything like that, because we just don't care anymore.
Right.
Food, like I still love food. Don't get me wrong. I love a good experience. I love going to a great restaurant. I'm still a foodie at heart, but it doesn't control my mindset. Like I would rather go check out a cool gym than go to a really good restaurant. But that just happened with time of just switching my habits, changing my lifestyle. And also when you're overweight and you eat like shit for a very long time, you don't realize how bad you feel all the time.
Right.
And so now we're both at the point where, yes, we can enjoy, I call it a free meal, but a cheat meal.
Right.
But then like, I hate the way that I feel afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's like last night we went to a really cool restaurant, called YOLO, and it was great. We had like tuna tartare to start with, which not too unhealthy. Like you're basically just having some raw fish. And then I got a steak and she got a salad with salmon on it, but I got truffle fries on the side.
They're good though at
and
that place.
They were delicious, but like it wrecked me. Like I felt terrible. Like I felt swollen and just like not great afterwards. And that was just like, I mean, I had an 8-ounce filet and some French fries and a little bit of raw tuna. I watched people like consume 10 or 12 alcoholic beverages and like shove their face full of like 17 different items on their plate. Yeah. So it's like, but that used to be me.
Right.
And so I don't know, once you get to a spot where you're pretty optimized from a health standpoint, really food just takes a whole different course for you because you just hate not feeling good.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, well, your life doesn't revolve around it anymore.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
But it's in there. It's, you got to keep pushing that guy deep down inside because he can come back out. He can pop up and say, boo.
I was actually just going to ask you. So is it, obviously it's not difficult for you now, but do you find yourself having to kind of keep that person in check?
Yeah. I think for me, like having certain goals revolving around fitness are very helpful.
Okay.
And so after I finished 75 Hard, I went on to do the Live Hard program, which is basically a full year of different phases of 75 Hard. And so I think that really solidified my mental change because there's so many things that you have to do within a year. And the way that the program's designed is that it makes you take breaks. And so those breaks are like a really great opportunity for your old habits to creep back in.
Right.
And then when I finished Live Hard, I decided to get into bodybuilding. And so going through bodybuilding prep is such an amazing thing because you have to be like, if you think 75 Hard is hard, like bodybuilding prep is like 75 Hard on steroids. Like it's just a whole nother level of commitment and just getting to this really dark place that you have to push yourself to go to. And so doing 3 shows last year, I think between 75 Hard, Live Hard, and that really solidified my mental shift. And now this year I'm not competing, but it's like, I have a lot of sponsorships. Like we own a health and nutrition company. So like staying in very good shape is very top of mind. And having that goal of like looking really good, being the part, showing up every day, especially for our clients and showing them what's possible is definitely something that keeps me motivated. So like, I like having a little bit of external pressure, whether that comes from doing a program like 75 Hard, whether that comes from bodybuilding, whether that comes from just like, hey, you're sponsored by an athletic clothing brand and a supplement company, like you can't be fat representing their stuff. So having all those different external pressures for my personality is super helpful.
Yeah. So I think some people just generally operate better under pressure.
Yeah. I would say that like I'm a procrastinator by nature. And so like I thrive under pressure, which isn't always the greatest thing. But having some sort of external pressure definitely has helped me. So always kind of having a goal in mind
Right. Keeps you on track.
Yeah.
That's great. And yeah, you're right. It's not always the best thing to be I guess under pressure to do things, but it is good to know that when the pressure's on that you're on point, right? And you get things done. It's convenient to be that way as a person. It's just not the best to always have to live your life that way.
Like, there was probably a much easier, less stressful way to get this done.
Right. Absolutely.
Kind of last minute.
Yeah.
But you still get it done, right?
Yes, he does.
It always gets done, but yeah.
No, listen, I feel like sometimes we create more complicated situations for ourselves than we have to.
No doubt.
But it's also like one of those things, like when you thrive in a certain atmosphere, you don't fear it, right? So you very easily let yourself get to that place because you have it under control. And that's where you kind of lose perspective a little bit. But at the end of the day, like we said, it does get done. We could just do it at a lot less stressful of a way, probably.
Yeah.
Do you want to shout out any of your sponsors though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say for us, so like we coach now. So our objective is to help people transform their lives. And so coaching has been a big thing for us. We coach lifestyle clients. So if you're looking to lose 10, 15 pounds, great. If you need to lose 150 pounds, great. Like we've kind of been through every part of that. And so we're happy to help anyone on their journey. And we actually just started coaching people to stage as well. So we have a couple clients competing this year. So we're really excited about that.
Awesome.
So probably the easiest way to reach out to us is Instagram. So my handle is @JeffreyJensen. And then Lauren's handle
is @Lauren B. Jensen.
So Instagram's a great place to connect with us. We also have our website, which is PARA transform.com. That's our coaching website. And then if you ever need any athletic clothing, Alpha Elite Athletics is by far an amazing brand. I've been buying them way before they gave me any clothing for free or paid me. But you can save 10% code Jeffrey at checkout. And then I actually just signed with First Form, which is Andy Frisella's company. So that very full circle moment for me. I was just on his podcast. His program literally started my journey. It changed my life, and his company has been a massive role in my weight loss. I've been using their supplements for over 3 years without ever thinking that I would have the opportunity to meet him or be a part of their company or anything like that. And so First Form, huge supporter of them. We don't have codes for that, but send me a message on Instagram. I'll send you a link. And we appreciate you having us on. It's been super fun and been awesome.
My pleasure, man. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to need that discount code, by the way.
I'll get you the discount code. One last thing that I forgot, I always forget it. But if you are in the Carolinas, 212 Meal Prep. So our baby, the company that we actually own, makes delicious, healthy food. So if you're in Charlotte, North Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, or Raleigh, because we're getting ready to open Raleigh. You can order 212 at 212meals.com. So great place to start your journey if you need help with food.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us as usual. Continue to keep giving us your feedback. We enjoy it. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Lauren, for joining us. It was our pleasure to have you today. Be sure to check them out on IG. You can check out Jeffrey at Jeffrey Jensen and his wife, Lauren, at Lauren B. Jensen. And that's on IG. And if you are in the Carolinas, be sure to check out their meal prep company, 212 Meal Prep. From what I understand, I'll never be able to try them, but they are amazing meals to start your fitness journey on. Okay, everybody. So I just wanted to take the time to apologize. Unfortunately, our lovely co-host, Ashley Mayland, was not able to make it for the next few episodes. She had some personal matters to attend to, but worry not. She will be back in a few weeks, better than ever and ready to go. As usual, thank you so much. You know how much we greatly appreciate you guys watching every week. Definitely be sure to tune in next week for part 2 with our amazing guest, Jeffrey Jensen and his wife, Lauren. They were fantastic, and we can't wait to hear what you think about the episode. Thank you, guys. Peace out. Appreciate you.